The flight attendant smiled as she ripped up the black girl's ticket, calling her a thief in front of everyone. But she had no idea. That 12-year-old's father OWNS's Airline, and he just found out what she did. "This ticket is fake," Claire announced loudly, her voice echoing across Gate 47. "Security, we have a situation here." Kayla Bryant stood frozen, her brown eyes wide with shock. Her hands trembled as she watched the pieces of her ticket scatter across the polished airport floor. Around her, dozens of passengers stopped what they were doing. Some pulled out their phones. Others whispered to each other, their faces twisted with judgment. But that's my ticket," Kayla whispered, her voice barely audible. "My dad." "I don't want to hear your excuses," Claire snapped, cutting her off. She crossed her arms over her crisp blue flight attendant uniform, the wings on her chest glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Little girls like you need to learn that you can't just waltz onto a plane without proper documentation." Kayla's bottom lip quivered. She clutched her backpack straps so tightly her knuckles turned pale. She had been so excited just 5 minutes ago, so happy, and now tears were starting to burn behind her eyes as airport security began walking toward her. Claire leaned down, her face inches from Kayla's, her breath smelling like coffee and mint. "Did someone give you that ticket?" she asked in a voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Did you steal it from somewhere?" What Claire Peterson didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined in her wildest dreams, was that the terrified little girl standing before her, fighting back tears, was Kayla Bryant. And Kayla's father didn't just work for the airline. He owned it. Every single plane, every single gate, every single employee wearing that blue uniform, including Claire. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how this moment happened, we need to go back to where this story really began. 3 hours earlier, the Bryant household in Columbus, Ohio, was filled with the smell of pancakes and the sound of laughter. "Dad, you're going to make me late." Kayla giggled, dodging as her father, Marcus Bryant, pretended to flip a pancake directly at her head. "Late? Impossible." Marcus boomed with a huge smile. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a laugh that seemed to fill whatever room he was in. "The plane can't leave without you. After all, on the airline, I know, Kayla finished, rolling her eyes but grinning. She had heard this joke 1,000,000 times, but it never got old. Her dad was her hero. Marcus Bryant had started with nothing, absolutely nothing. He grew up in a small apartment in Cleveland, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. He wore second-hand clothes to school and studied by candlelight when they couldn't afford to pay the electric bill. But Marcus was smart. More than smart, he was brilliant. He earned scholarships, worked his way through college, and started his first business in a garage. 20 years later, he owned Bryant Airlines, one of the fastest-growing airline companies in the Midwest. But despite all his success, despite all his money, Marcus never forgot where he came from. He never forgot what it felt like to be looked down on because of the color of his skin or the holes in his shoes. That's why he always taught Kayla one thing above all else. Treat everyone with respect, baby girl. Everyone. Because you never know what battles they're fighting. Kayla lived by those words. At school, she was the kid who sat with the lonely students at lunch. She helped other kids with their homework. She stood up to bullies, even when it scared her. "So, you ready for your big adventure?" Marcus asked, setting a plate of golden pancakes in front of her. Kayla's eyes lit up like fireworks. "Yes. I can't believe I'm finally going to visit Grandma in Chicago all by myself." It was true. Today was special. Today, for the first time ever, Kayla was flying alone. She was 12 now. Old enough, her parents had decided, to travel as an unaccompanied minor. Her grandmother had been begging for this visit for months. "Now remember," Marcus said, sitting down across from her, his expression turning serious. "You have your ID in your backpack, right? Check. Your phone is charged? Check. And you have the special ticket I gave you?" Kayla pulled out of her backpack proudly. It was a first-class ticket, printed on special paper with gold lettering. "Right here." Marcus smiled, but something flickered across his face. Something Kayla didn't quite catch. A worry, perhaps. A concern. Dad, Kayla asked, is something wrong? Marcus shook his head quickly. No, baby girl. Nothing's wrong. I want you to be careful out there, okay? Not everyone is kind. Not everyone will treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Kayla frowned. What do you mean? Marcus sighed, reaching across the table to take his daughter's hand. Kayla, you're growing up now. And as you grow up, you're going to meet people who might judge you before they even know you. People who might see your beautiful brown skin and make assumptions. You mean like racism? Kayla asked quietly. They had talked about this before, but it had always seemed like something distant, something that happened in history books or on the news. Yes, Marcus said gently, like racism. And I need you to know that if anyone ever treats you unfairly, it's not because of anything wrong with you. It's because of something wrong with them. Do you understand? Kayla nodded, but she didn't really understand. Not yet. How could she? She lived in a bubble of love and privilege. Her father was rich. Her school was nice. Most of her teachers and friends treated her well. She had no idea that in just a few hours, her father's words would become terrifyingly real. Come on, Marcus said, standing up and grabbing his car keys. Let's get you to the airport. Your adventure awaits. The drive to Port Columbus International Airport took 30 minutes. Kayla pressed her face against the window, watching the city blur past. She had flown dozens of times before, but always with her parents. Today felt different. Today felt grown up. Marcus pulled up to the departure terminal and helped Kayla get her small suitcase from the trunk. You sure you don't want to walk you inside? He asked for the third time. Dad, I'm 12, not 2, Kayla said, but she was smiling. I can do this. Marcus pulled her into a tight hug. I know you can, baby girl. You can do anything. Just remember, if anything feels wrong, if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you call me immediately. Okay, Dad. And Kayla? Marcus looked into her eyes, his expression intense. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You are a Bryant. You hold your head high no matter what. Kayla nodded, feeling a strange flutter in her stomach. Why did her dad seem so worried? Love you, Dad. Love you more. Kayla waved as she walked through the automatic doors into the airport. The terminal was busy, people rushing everywhere, dragging suitcases, checking phones, buying coffee. The smell of pretzels and cleaning solution filled the air. Kayla checked the departure board. Gate 47. Flight 2847 to Chicago. Boarding in 1 hour. She made her way through security, without any problems. The TSA agent smiled at her and even complimented her backpack, which had drawings of airplanes all over it. You like planes, huh? The agent asked. My dad owns an airline, Kayla said proudly. The agent laughed, clearly thinking she was joking. Well, aren't you fancy? Have a great flight, sweetheart. Kayla walked through the terminal, feeling confident and excited. She bought a chocolate chip cookie from a shop, found Gate 47, and sat down to wait. That's when she saw her, Claire Peterson. The flight attendant stood near the gate counter, checking her reflection in her phone screen. She was tall and thin, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was perfect, not a single wrinkle. Her makeup was flawless, but there was something about her eyes. Something cold, something mean. Kayla watched as Claire spoke to the other flight attendants. One of them said something that made Claire laugh, a sharp, harsh sound that made Kayla uncomfortable. Can you believe they're making us work the Chicago route again? Claire complained loudly. I specifically requested the Miami flights. I don't get paid enough to deal with these budget passengers. The way she said budget passengers made it sound like an insult. Another flight attendant, a younger woman named Beth, frowned. Claire, that's not very nice. Oh, please, Claire interrupted, rolling her eyes. Don't give me that equality speech again. I call it like I see it. Some people belong in first class, and some people don't. It's just the way the world works. Kayla felt her stomach twist. She didn't like this woman. She didn't like her at all. But Kayla pushed the feeling away. Maybe she was just having a bad day. Maybe she was nicer than she seemed. Kayla's dad always taught her not to judge people too quickly. The minutes ticked by. More and more passengers gathered at gate 47. Families with young children. Business people typing on laptops. Elderly couples holding hands. Finally, a voice crackled over the intercom. We will now begin boarding flight 2847 to Chicago. First-class passengers and passengers requiring special assistance may board at this time. Kayla stood up, clutching her golden first-class ticket. Her heart was pounding with excitement. She was really doing this, flying all by herself. She got in line behind a businessman in an expensive suit. When it was his turn, he handed his ticket to Beth, the younger flight attendant. She scanned it and smiled. "Welcome aboard, sir. Enjoy your flight." Then it was Kayla's turn. But instead of Beth, Claire Peterson stepped forward. "Ticket," Claire said flatly, not even looking at Kayla. Kayla handed over her golden ticket, smiling nervously. Claire took it and glanced down, and then her expression changed. Her eyes narrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked at the ticket, then at Kayla, then back at the ticket. "Where did you get this?" Claire asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Kayla blinked, confused. My dad gave it to me." "Your dad?" Claire repeated slowly, her eyes traveling up and down Kayla's body, taking in her simple jeans and t-shirt, her worn sneakers, her backpack covered in stickers. "Your dad gave you a first-class ticket." "Yes, ma'am," Kayla said politely. Claire let out a short, harsh laugh. "Honey, first-class tickets cost over $1,000. Do you really expect me to believe that your daddy just casually bought you a first-class ticket?" The way Claire said daddy made Kayla's face burn with shame. But he did," Kayla stammered. "He really did. Let me guess," Claire interrupted, holding up one hand. "He won the lottery? He's a famous rapper? Or maybe he's a doctor?" She said the last word with heavy sarcasm. Kayla felt tears starting to sting her eyes, but she blinked them back. "My dad owns." "Sweetie, I've been a flight attendant for 15 years, Claire said, cutting her off again. "I've seen every scam in the book. Kids like you steal tickets, print fake ones, or use ones that don't belong to them. And I'm not going to let you onto my plane with a fraudulent ticket." "It's not fraudulent," Kayla protested, her voice rising. "My dad gave it to me. You can call him." "I don't need to call anyone," Claire said coldly. "I can tell a fake ticket when I see one." Beth, the other flight attendant, stepped closer. "Claire, maybe we should just scan it." "Stay out of this, Beth," Claire snapped. "I'm the senior attendant here." The other passengers in line were starting to murmur. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked annoyed, checking their watches, wanting to board. Kayla felt her whole body start to shake. This wasn't how the day was supposed to go. This was supposed to be an adventure, a special day. Why was this woman being so mean? "Please," Kayla whispered. "Just scan it. You'll see it's real." Claire stared down at her for a long moment. Then, in one swift motion, she raised the ticket high in the air and ripped it in half. The sound echoed through the terminal. Kayla gasped. Claire ripped it again. And again, pieces of golden paper fluttered to the ground like dying leaves. "That's what I think of your real ticket," Claire said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Security, we have a situation at gate 47. And that's where our story began." Kayla stood there, tears now streaming down her face, as two airport security officers approached. Around her, passengers whispered and stared. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked suspicious, wondering what this little black girl had done wrong. Claire crossed her arms, looking triumphant. This child attempted to board with a fraudulent ticket. I believe she may have stolen it. "I didn't steal anything." Kayla cried, her voice breaking. "My dad gave it to me. My dad." "Sure he did," Claire said mockingly. "And I'm the Queen of England." One of the security officers, an older man with kind eyes, knelt down next to Kayla. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's your name?" Kayla Bryant." She hiccuped through her tears. "Okay, Kayla. And where are your parents? My dad dropped me off. I was flying alone to see my grandma. The security officer nodded patiently. And do you have any other form of ID? Anything that shows you were supposed to be on this flight? Kayla nodded frantically and dug through her backpack. She pulled out her school ID and her unaccompanied minor paperwork. The officer examined them carefully. His eyebrows rose slightly when he saw the name on the paperwork. Bryant, he repeated. As in Marcus Bryant? Yes, Kayla said desperately. That's my dad. He owns Bryant Airlines. This whole airline. Claire let out a loud, mocking laugh. Oh, this is rich. Now she's claiming her daddy owns the airline. What's next? Is your uncle the president? Several passengers laughed along with Claire. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Beth, the younger flight attendant, stepped forward again. Claire, her paperwork says Bryant. Maybe we should. Beth, for the last time, stay out of this. Claire's face was turning red now. I've dealt with con artists before. They make up all sorts of stories. They have fake IDs, fake paperwork. This little girl is no different. The security officer stood up slowly, studying Claire. Ma'am, I think we should at least verify. There's nothing to verify, Claire practically shouted. The ticket was obviously fake. I know a forgery when I see one. And even if it wasn't fake, which it was, she clearly doesn't belong in first class. Look at her. Does she look like someone who can afford a $1,000 ticket? The terminal went silent. Even the passengers who had been laughing stopped. Because now, Claire had said the quiet part out loud. This was about a black girl in worn sneakers and a backpack full of stickers. This was about Claire Peterson deciding that some people belonged in first class and others didn't. This was about racism, pure and simple. Kayla understood now. She understood what her father had tried to warn her about. The flutter of worry in his eyes. The serious talk at breakfast. He knew that even with all his money, even with all his success, his daughter would still face people like Claire Peterson. People who would look at her beautiful brown skin and decide she was less than, decide she was a thief, decide she didn't belong. You're mean, Kayla said quietly, looking up at Claire through her tears. You're a mean, terrible person. Claire's face twisted with anger. How dare you? Security, remove this child from the terminal immediately. But the security officer wasn't moving. He was looking at his radio, which was crackling with static. Someone was trying to reach him. Hold on, he said, pressing the button. This is Officer Johnson. A frantic voice came to the radio. Johnson, we have a situation. Marcus Bryant is at the main terminal demanding to speak to security at gate 47. He's saying his daughter is there and something's wrong. He's pretty upset. The officer's eyes widened. He looked at Kayla, then at Claire, then back at his radio. Copy that, he said slowly. Tell Mr. Bryant. We'll meet him at gate 47. And you might want to have airport management come too. Claire's confident smile faltered for just a second. What? Why? Who's Marcus Bryant? The security officer didn't answer. He just looked at Claire with something that might have been pity, because he knew what was about to happen. He knew that in about 5 minutes, Claire Peterson's entire world was about to come crashing down. Hit subscribe if you believe everyone should be treated with respect, no matter what they look like. Only bullies and haters won't subscribe. Don't be like Claire Peterson. Hit that subscribe button now and stand against discrimination. Marcus Bryant moved through the airport terminal like a man on a mission. His phone had rung 15 minutes ago. A text from Kayla's phone, just 3 words that made his blood run cold. Dad, help me. He had tried calling back immediately. No answer. He tried again. And again. Nothing. Marcus had been in his office downtown, sitting in a meeting with his company's board of directors. The moment he saw that text, he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out without a word of explanation. His assistant, Jennifer, had run after him. Mr. Bryant, the meeting. Cancel it, Marcus said, his voice tight. Something's wrong with Kayla. He broke every speed limit getting back to the airport. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles ached. His mind raced through terrible possibilities. Was she hurt? Sick? Lost? The one possibility he didn't consider, the one he should have considered, was the truth, because Marcus had been dealing with people like Claire Peterson his entire life. Now Marcus burst through the airport entrance, his expensive suit jacket flying behind him. People jumped out of his way. Security guards straightened up when they saw him, recognizing the man whose name was on their paychecks. "Where's Gate 47? Marcus demanded to the nearest airport employee. "Mr. Bryant." "Sir, it's down Concourse B, but—" Marcus didn't wait to hear the rest. He was already running. Back at Gate 47, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Claire Peterson stood with her arms crossed, her foot tapping impatiently. She kept glancing at her watch, then at the growing crowd of passengers. "Can we please get the situation resolved?" she said loudly. "We have a flight to board. These paying passengers shouldn't be delayed because of one lying child." Kayla sat in a chair near the gate, the security officer standing protectively beside her. She had stopped crying, but her eyes were red and puffy. Her hands clutched her backpack like it was a life preserver. Beth, the younger flight attendant, kept trying to catch Kayla's eye, her expression apologetic. But what could she do? Claire was her supervisor. More airport staff had arrived. A gate manager. 2 more security officers. They stood in a small cluster, speaking in low voices and occasionally glancing at Kayla and Claire. "I still don't understand why we're waiting," Claire complained. "The child tried to board with a fake ticket. I disposed of it. End of story. Can we please?" "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to be patient," Officer Johnson said firmly. "Mr. Bryant is on his way." "And who exactly is Mr. Bryant?" Claire demanded. "Some angry parent who's going to yell at me for doing my job? I've dealt with those before. They don't scare me." Officer Johnson didn't respond. He just looked toward the terminal entrance. Claire followed his gaze and saw a commotion. People were stepping aside, creating a path. Whispers rippled to the crowd like waves. And then Marcus Bryant appeared. He was tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and an air of authority that made people instinctively respect him. His dark suit was perfectly tailored. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. But it was his face that made Claire hesitate. His face was a storm of barely contained fury. "Kayla!" Marcus's voice boomed across the terminal. "Dad." Kayla jumped up from her chair and ran toward him. Marcus dropped to one knee and swept his daughter into his arms, holding her so tightly she squeaked. "Baby girl, are you okay? Are you hurt? What happened?" She tore up my ticket," Kayla sobbed into his shoulder. "She said it was fake. She called security. She said I was lying and that I stole it and—" Marcus pulled back and looked at his daughter's tear-stained face. His jaw clenched. "Who?" he asked quietly. "Who did this to you?" Kayla pointed at Claire Peterson. Marcus stood up slowly, his eyes locking onto Claire. He walked toward her with measured steps, each footfall echoing in the suddenly silent terminal. Claire lifted her chin, tried to look confident. "Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down. Your daughter attempted to board my flight with what appeared to be a fraudulent—" "Your flight?" Marcus's voice was soft, dangerously soft. "Did you just say your flight?" "Yes, I'm the senior flight attendant on." "What's your name?" Claire blinked, thrown off by the question. "Claire Peterson. And I was simply doing my job by tearing up my daughter's ticket? It looked fake. Did you scan it?" Claire hesitated. "Well, no, but I could tell by looking." "You could tell," Marcus repeated slowly. "You could tell by looking at a ticket printed on our company's official first-class cardstock with our holographic seal, with a valid confirmation number, that it was fake." Something in his tone finally made Claire nervous. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know." "You know what?" Marcus took another step closer. "Tell me, Miss Peterson, what exactly made you so certain that my daughter's ticket was fraudulent? Was it the paper? The printing? The confirmation number?" Claire's mouth opened and closed. I just it seemed. Or was it my daughter herself? Marcus's voice dropped even lower. Was it the fact that a 12-year-old black girl was holding a first-class ticket that made you decide it must be fake? I never said anything about race. Claire protested, her face flushing red. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Marcus demanded. Because from where I'm standing, you saw my baby girl, a child traveling alone, a child with proper documentation, a child with a completely valid ticket, and you decided she was a criminal. You didn't verify. You didn't scan. You didn't even ask questions. You just ripped up her ticket and called security. The crowd of passengers was growing. People held up their phones, recording everything. Beth stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, I tried to tell her to scan it, but Ms. Peterson here was too busy being the judge and jury. Marcus finished. He turned to Officer Johnson. Tell me exactly what happened. Officer Johnson cleared his throat. Sir, when I arrived, Ms. Peterson had already destroyed the ticket. She claimed it was fraudulent and accused your daughter of theft. However, your daughter had proper identification and unaccompanied minor paperwork. The situation seemed questionable. Questionable, Marcus repeated. He looked at Claire with an expression that made her take a step backward. Ms. Peterson, do you know who I am? You said you're Kayla's father. Claire stammered. I'm Marcus Bryant, he said clearly. I own Bryant Airlines. Every plane in our fleet, every gate in this terminal, every uniform you're wearing right now. The color drained from Claire's face. That's impossible, she whispered. You can't be? Can't be what? Marcus asked. Can't be the owner? Can't be successful? Can't be black and wealthy? Which one is impossible to you, Miss Peterson? Claire looked around desperately, as if searching for help. The other airport staff were backing away. Even the passengers were watching with expressions of shock and growing anger. But this time, the anger wasn't directed at Kayla. It was directed at Claire. Mr. Bryant, I didn't know, Claire said, her voice shaking. If I had known who she was. Stop. Marcus held up one hand. Stop right there. Because what you just said, that's the problem. You're saying if you had known who she was, if you had known she was the owner's daughter, you would have treated her differently. But the question is, why didn't you treat her with respect in the first place? Why does a child need to be connected to someone powerful to deserve basic human dignity? Claire had no answer. Marcus turned to the airport manager, who had been standing frozen nearby. Get me the security footage. All of it. I want to see exactly what happened here. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. And someone find the pieces of my daughter's ticket. I want them as evidence. Beth immediately dropped to her knees and started gathering the torn pieces of golden paper from the floor. Marcus knelt down beside Kayla again, wiping tears from her cheeks. Baby girl, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You were right, Dad, Kayla whispered. You tried to warn me, but I didn't think someone would really be that mean. Marcus pulled her close. I know, sweetheart. I know. He stood up and turned back to Claire, who looked like she was about to be sick. Miss Peterson, Marcus said coldly, you're suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation into this incident. You can't do that. Claire protested, panic flooding her voice. I have rights. I have a union. And my daughter had a right to be treated with respect. Marcus shot back. She had a right to board a plane with a valid ticket without being humiliated and accused of being a thief. But you took that right away from her. So yes, Miss Peterson, I absolutely can do that. And I will. Claire's face crumpled. Tears started streaming down her perfectly made-up face. Please, Mr. Bryant, please. I need this job. I have rent. I have bills. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you sorry for what you did? Marcus asked quietly. Or are you sorry you got caught? Claire opened her mouth, but no words came out, because they both knew the answer. Smash that like button if you think Claire got exactly what she deserved. Only people who support discrimination won't like this video. Show us where you stand. Hit like now. The airport manager returned 10 minutes later, carrying a tablet with the security footage queued up. His hands were shaking slightly as he approached Marcus Bryant. "Mr. Bryant, sir, I have the footage from gate 47, he said nervously. "It starts from when your daughter first approached the gate." Marcus took the tablet, his jaw still tight with anger. Kayla stood beside him, holding onto his arm. She didn't want to watch, but she also couldn't look away. "Play it," Marcus commanded. The footage began on the screen. They could see Kayla walking up to the gate, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders, a bright smile on her face. She looked so happy, so innocent, so excited for her first solo flight. Then Claire Peterson stepped into frame. Marcus and everyone watching could see the exact moment Claire looked at Kayla's ticket. They could see her expression change from neutral to suspicious in an instant. They could see her eyes travel up and down Kayla's body, judging her clothes, her shoes, her appearance. "Where did you get this?" Claire's voice came through the tablet speaker, sharp and accusatory. The crowd that had gathered around leaned in closer, watching intently. Some people gasped as they watched Claire's treatment of the young girl. "Your dad gave you a first-class ticket." Claire's voice dripped with sarcasm on the recording. "Do you really expect me to believe that your daddy just casually bought you a first-class ticket?" Marcus's grip on the tablet tightened. A vein pulsed in his temple. The video continued. They watched as Kayla tried to explain. They watched as Claire cut her off, again and again, not letting the child speak. They watched as Beth tried to intervene and was dismissed. Then came the moment that made several people in the crowd gasp out loud. Claire raised the ticket high in the air and ripped it apart, pieces falling like confetti around Kayla's feet. The look of satisfaction on Claire's face was unmistakable. "That's what I think of your real ticket." Claire's voice rang out from the speakers. On the video, they could see Kayla's face crumble. They could see the exact moment her heart broke. A 12-year-old child, humiliated in front of dozens of strangers. Marcus stopped the video and looked up at Claire. His eyes were filled with a pain that went beyond anger. "Ms. Peterson," he said quietly, "do you see what I see in this video?" Claire was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. "Mr. Bryant, please, I made a mistake." "A mistake," Marcus repeated. "A mistake is scanning the wrong ticket. A mistake is directing someone to the wrong gate. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose to look at me, daughter, and decide she was a criminal. You chose to humiliate her. You chose to destroy her property without any investigation whatsoever." He turned to the airport manager. "Send this footage to my office. I want our legal team to review every second of it." "Yes, sir." Marcus then addressed the crowd of passengers who were still watching, their phones still recording. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this delay. This is not how Bryant Airlines operates. This is not what we stand for. Every single person who boards our planes deserves respect, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, or what they're wearing." Several people in the crowd began to clap. Others nodded in agreement. "Those of you traveling to Chicago today," Marcus continued, "your flight will be delayed by approximately 30 minutes while we sort this situation out. As compensation, everyone on this flight will receive a full refund and a voucher for a future free flight." The applause grew louder. Claire watched all of this happening, her world falling apart around her. Just an hour ago, she had been in control. She had been the authority figure. She had felt powerful, tearing up that ticket, putting that child in her place. Now, she was a villain in a story that was being recorded and would probably be all over social media within hours. "Mr. Bryant." A voice called out from the crowd. A young woman stepped forward, her phone in her hand. "My name is Diana Foster. I'm a passenger on this flight, and I recorded the entire incident as well. I'd like to send you my footage too. What Ms. Peterson did was disgusting, and people need to see it." "Thank you, Ms. Foster," Marcus said, pulling out a business card. "Please send it to this email address." Actually, another voice spoke up. An elderly black man stepped forward, leaning on a cane. "I'd like to say something, if I may." Marcus nodded. "Of course, sir." The man looked at Claire with sad, tired eyes. Young lady, I'm 73 years old. I grew up in Alabama during segregation. I remember when people like me couldn't sit at the front of the bus, couldn't drink from the same water fountains, couldn't go to the same schools as white children. His voice shook slightly. I watched people fight and die so that my children and grandchildren wouldn't have to face that kind of hatred. And yet, here we are in 2025, and I just watched you treat this beautiful child the same way people treated me 60 years ago. You looked at her skin and decided she didn't belong. You didn't see a child. You saw a color. Claire's legs seemed to give out. She sank into a nearby chair, sobbing. I thought we were past this, the elderly man continued, his voice breaking. I really thought we were past this. Marcus walked over and shook the man's hand. Sir, thank you for speaking up. And I promise you, we will do better. This incident will lead to changes. Real changes. He turned to the airport manager. I want every employee of Bryant Airlines to undergo comprehensive anti-bias training. Not just a video they click through, real, meaningful training. And I want it implemented immediately. Yes, sir, Mr. Bryant. I also want a complete review of our hiring and training practices. Clearly, something went wrong if Ms. Peterson felt empowered to act this way. Beth, the younger flight attendant, raised her hand hesitantly. Mr. Bryant? Sir? I just want to say that I tried to stop her. I told her to scan the ticket, but she's my supervisor and... Beth, is it? Marcus asked gently. Yes, sir. You did the right thing by speaking up. That took courage. Marcus looked at the airport manager. Make a note. Beth is to receive a commendation for her actions today. And a promotion. We need more employees like her who are willing to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Beth's eyes widened. Sir, thank you. Thank you so much. Marcus knelt down beside Kayla again. Baby girl, how are you doing? Kayla had been quiet through all of this, processing everything. Dad, why did she hate me so much? She didn't even know me. It was the question Marcus had been dreading. How do you explain racism to a child? How do you explain that some people will judge her based on nothing more than the color of her skin? She doesn't hate you, sweetheart, Marcus said softly. She doesn't even know you. What she hates is what you represent. You're a young, confident, successful black girl, and some people like Ms. Peterson, can't accept that. They think the world should look a certain way, and when it doesn't match their expectations, they lash out. But that's so stupid, Kayla said, her voice small. You're absolutely right. It is stupid, but stupid ideas can still hurt people. That's why we have to fight against them. That's why what happened today, as terrible as it was, is actually important. Important how? Marcus gestured to all the phones recording all the people watching. Because now, people see what really happens. Not just in history books or news reports, but right here, right now. They saw what happened to you, and they're angry about it. They're going to talk about it, share it, demand change. Your pain today might help protect other children tomorrow. Kayla thought about this for a moment. Then she looked at Claire, who was still slumped in the chair, crying. Dad, Kayla said quietly, I know she was mean to me. I know she did a bad thing. But she looks really sad. Marcus's heart swelled with pride. Even after everything that had happened, his daughter could still feel compassion. That was the difference between her and Claire Peterson. Kayla had been taught to see people as individuals. Claire had been taught, or had learned, to see people as categories. She is sad, baby girl, Marcus said. She's sad because she's facing consequences for her actions. But those consequences are necessary. If we don't hold people accountable, they never learn. They never change. Officer Johnson stepped forward. Mr. Bryant, we're going to need to file an official report about this incident, and Ms. Peterson will need to be escorted from the premises. Understood, Marcus said. Standing up, he looked at Claire one more time. Ms. Peterson, you're banned from all Bryant Airlines properties pending an investigation. You will receive notification about your employment status within 72 hours. Claire looked up at him, her face a mess of tears and smudged makeup. Mr. Bryant, please, I'm begging you. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. I'll apologize to Kayla. I'll go to training. You'll do all those things, Marcus interrupted, but not because you want to keep your job. You'll do them because it's the right thing to do. You'll do them because a child deserves better than what you gave her today. He paused and added, and Miss Peterson, I want you to think about something. You saw my daughter and immediately assumed the worst. You didn't see her intelligence, her kindness, her potential. You just saw her skin color and made a judgment. But here's the truth. That little girl right there, she's going to change the world someday. She's smart, compassionate, and stronger than you'll ever be. And you'll have to live with the fact that you tried to break her spirit, but you failed. Marcus took Kayla's hand. Come on, baby girl. Let's get you on that plane to see Grandma. Wait, Kayla said. She walked over to Claire, who looked up at her with red, swollen eyes. Everyone held their breath, wondering what the child would say. Kayla stood there for a moment, looking at the woman who had caused her so much pain. Then she said quietly, I forgive you, but you need to do better. You need to be better. And with that, Kayla turned and walked back to her father. Claire broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus put his arm around his daughter and led her toward the gate. Beth quickly issued them a new boarding pass, first class, of course, and personally escorted them onto the plane as they walked down the jetway. Kayla looked up at her father. Dad, am I still going to fly alone? Marcus smiled. Actually, baby girl, I think I'm going to come with you this time. Your grandma won't mind having both of us show up. Really? Really? After today, I don't want to let you out of my sight for a while. Kayla hugged him tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too, baby girl. More than you'll ever know. Behind them, back at gate 47, security was escorting Claire Peterson out of the terminal. Her career was over. Her reputation was destroyed. And all because she couldn't see past the color of a child's skin. But the story wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Drop a comment telling us what you would have said to Claire Peterson if you were there. And subscribe if you believe in treating all people with dignity and respect. Only discriminators and bullies won't subscribe. Don't be on the wrong side of history. The video went viral within 3 hours. By the time Marcus and Kayla's plane landed in Chicago, the footage had been viewed over 2 million times. By the next morning, it was trending on every social media platform with hashtags like #JusticeForKayla and #FireClairePeterson. News outlets picked up the story. Radio hosts debated it. Podcasters dissected every frame of the video. And everyone, absolutely everyone, had an opinion. Marcus's phone hadn't stopped ringing since they landed. He sat in his mother's living room in Chicago. Kayla curled up beside him on the couch, while his phone buzzed continuously on the coffee table. His mother, Dorothy Bryant, brought them hot chocolate and cookies, clucking her tongue in disapproval. That woman should be ashamed of herself, Dorothy said, shaking her head. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her eyes, the same warm eyes Marcus had inherited, blazed with protective anger. Treating my grandbaby like that. Lord have mercy. Grandma, I'm okay, Kayla said softly, though they all knew it wasn't entirely true. She had barely slept on the plane, jumping at every sound, watching every flight attendant with suspicious eyes. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen and sighed. It's the head of HR. That's the 5th call from the office. You should answer it, Dorothy said. This isn't going away, son. Marcus picked up the phone. Hello, Mr. Bryant. Sir, we have a situation. His HR director, Patricia Hall, sounded stressed. The story is everywhere. We're getting thousands of calls. Some people are praising us for how you handled it, but others are defending Claire Peterson. Marcus sat up straighter. Defending her? How? They're saying she was just doing her job, that security concerns justify checking tickets carefully, that you're being too harsh because she embarrassed your daughter. Sir, there's a petition online demanding she be rehired. It has over 50,000 signatures. Marcus felt his blood pressure rising. 50,000 people think it's acceptable to tear up a child's ticket without verification? Not exactly, sir. They're framing it differently. They're saying They're saying this is about political correctness gone too far, that people can't do their jobs anymore without being accused of racism. Patricia, did those 50,000 people watch the same video we did? Did they see Claire's face when she looked at my daughter? Did they hear the contempt in her voice? I know, sir. I agree with you completely. But the narrative is shifting in some circles. We need to get ahead of this. Marcus looked at Kayla, who was watching him with wide, worried eyes. She had been through enough. But he knew this battle wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every black child who would face a Claire Peterson in their lifetime. Schedule a press conference. Marcus said firmly, "Tomorrow morning. I'm flying back tonight." "Sir, are you sure? Maybe we should let this die down." "Patricia, this isn't dying down. This is growing. And I will not let my daughter's pain be twisted into something it's not. We're going to address this head on." After he hung up, Dorothy put her hand on his shoulder. "Marcus, baby, are you sure you want to put yourself through this? Put Kayla through this?" Marcus looked at his daughter. "Kayla, sweetheart, the media wants to talk about what happened. If we do this, your face is going to be everywhere. People are going to talk about you, debate about you, maybe even say mean things. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. We can let it go." Kayla was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Dad, at school, we learned about Ruby Bridges. She was just 6 years old when she walked into that white school, and everyone was so mean to her. But she did it anyway because it was important." "That's right," Marcus said softly. "I'm 12. I'm older than Ruby. And if she could be brave, I could be brave too." Kayla's voice grew stronger. "I want to do the press conference. I want people to hear my side. Because what Miss Peterson did was wrong, and people need to know that." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "That's my grandbaby. Strong just like her daddy." Marcus pulled Kayla into a tight hug. "Okay, we'll do it together." The flight back to Ohio that night was surreal. Passengers recognized Marcus and Kayla immediately. Some approached them with words of support. Others snapped photos from a distance. One teenage girl, maybe 16 years old, came up to Kayla in the airport terminal. "Hey, are you the girl from the video?" Kayla nodded hesitantly. The teenager's eyes filled with tears. "I just want to say thank you. I'm black too, and last year, a store security guard followed me around for 20 minutes because he thought I was stealing. He made me empty my pockets and my bag in front of everyone. It was so humiliating. But no one believed me when I told them. They said I was being dramatic. But now, because of you, people are talking about this stuff. They're actually listening." She hugged Kayla quickly, then walked away, wiping her eyes. Marcus watched his daughter's face as she processed this encounter. Kayla hadn't realized that her story would resonate with so many others. She hadn't understood that her pain was shared by countless people who had experienced similar treatment. "Dad," Kayla said quietly as they boarded their plane, "how many people has this happened to?" Marcus sighed. "Too many, baby girl. Far too many. Then we have to do something. We can't just let it keep happening." And in that moment, Marcus realized his daughter had learned the most important lesson of all. With privilege comes responsibility. With a platform comes a duty to speak up for those who can't. The press conference was scheduled for 10 o'clock the next morning at Bryant Airlines headquarters in Columbus. By 9:30, the conference room was packed with reporters from local and national news outlets. Marcus stood backstage with Kayla, adjusting his tie nervously. Despite owning a multimillion-dollar company, despite facing down boardrooms full of skeptical investors, he had never been more nervous than he was right now. Because this wasn't about business. This was about his child. Patricia appeared at his elbow. "Sir, we're ready whenever you are. But I should warn you, some of the reporters are going to ask tough questions. They're going to try to make this about you being overly protective or abusing your power as the airline owner. Let them ask." Marcus said firmly, "I have nothing to hide." Kayla tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, I'm scared." Marcus knelt down to her level. "Me too, sweetheart. But sometimes the right thing to do is also the scary thing to do. And we don't have to do this alone. We have each other." Kayla nodded, taking a deep breath. Mr. Bryant? A staff member peeked in. We're ready for you. Marcus took Kayla's hand, and together they walked out onto the small stage that had been set up. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. The sound of clicking cameras filled the air. Marcus approached the podium, Kayla standing beside him. He looked out at the sea of reporters, at the cameras broadcasting this moment to millions of people, and he began to speak. Good morning. Thank you all for coming. My name is Marcus Bryant, owner and CEO of Bryant Airlines. This is my daughter, Kayla Bryant. 3 days ago, Kayla experienced something that no child, no person should ever experience. She was racially profiled, humiliated, and treated like a criminal by one of my employees. The reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks. I've heard some people say that the story is being blown out of proportion, that Claire Peterson was simply doing her job, that I'm overreacting because my daughter was embarrassed. Marcus paused, his voice growing harder. Let me be absolutely clear. What happened to Kayla was not about an overzealous employee checking a ticket. It was about prejudice. It was about a grown woman looking at a black child and deciding, without any evidence, that she must be a thief. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Bryant, some people are saying you're using your power to destroy Ms. Peterson's career over a simple misunderstanding. Marcus's eyes flashed. A simple misunderstanding? My daughter had a valid ticket. She had proper identification. She had all her documentation. The only reason Claire Peterson decided that ticket was fake was because she couldn't imagine a black girl legitimately belonging in first class. Another reporter stood up. But isn't it true that fake tickets are a real problem? Don't flight attendants have to be vigilant? Absolutely, Marcus agreed. But vigilance requires verification. If Claire Peterson had doubts about the ticket, she should have scanned it. Instead, she ripped it up without even attempting to verify its authenticity. That's not vigilance. That's prejudice. He felt Kayla squeeze his hand. My daughter wants to say something, Marcus said, stepping back slightly. The room went silent. Kayla stepped up to the microphone, which had to be lower for her height. Her voice was small at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. My name is Kayla Bryant, and I'm 12 years old. 3 days ago, I was excited to fly by myself for the first time. I was so happy. But then Ms. Peterson looked at me like I was bad, like I didn't belong. She didn't ask questions. She just decided I was lying. A tear rolled down Kayla's cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. I want people to know that what she did hurt. It still hurts. But I also want people to know that this happens to kids like me all the time. We get followed in stores. We get assumed to be troublemakers. We get treated like we don't belong in nice places. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm lucky because my dad has money and power. He could do something about what happened to me. But what about all the other kids who don't have that? Who's standing up for them? The room was completely silent, except for the clicking of cameras. So I'm asking everyone watching, please don't just feel sorry for me. Feel angry, and then do something about it. Stand up when you see people being treated unfairly. Speak up, because everyone deserves respect, no matter what they look like. Kayla stepped back from the microphone, and the room erupted. Comment below if Kayla's speech moved you. And subscribe right now if you stand with brave young people who speak truth to power. Only cowards and bullies won't subscribe. Show us you're better than that. The press conference changed everything. Kayla's speech, delivered in her small, trembling voice, became the most watched clip of the year. Her words, "Who's standing up to them?" became a rallying cry. Within 24 hours, the hashtag stand up for them was trending worldwide. But not everyone was moved. Claire Peterson hired a lawyer. 3 days after the press conference, Marcus received a letter. Claire was suing Bryant Airlines for wrongful termination, claiming she had been fired without due process, and that Marcus had used his power to publicly humiliate her. The lawsuit demanded $5 million in damages. Marcus sat in his office, reading the letter for the third time. His lawyer, David Foster, sat across from him, his expression grim. Marcus, this is going to get messy, David warned. Claire's legal team is going to argue that you acted impulsively out of anger. They'll say the investigation wasn't thorough. They'll paint her as the victim of a powerful man's rage. Let them try, Marcus said coldly. We have video evidence. We have witness testimony. We have documentation of everything. True, but juries can be unpredictable. And Claire's lawyers are smart. They're not denying what happened. They're reframing it. They're saying she made an honest mistake under pressure, and that your response was disproportionate. Marcus leaned back in his chair. What do you think we should do? David hesitated. Honestly? Settle. Offer her a year's salary, a confidentiality agreement, and move on. Dragging this through court will keep the story alive for months, maybe years. Is that what you want for Kayla? Marcus thought about his daughter. She had been so brave at the press conference, but he could see the toll this was taking on her. She wasn't sleeping well. She was quieter than usual. She flinched whenever someone approached her unexpectedly. But settling felt like giving up. Like saying what Claire did wasn't that bad. Before Marcus could respond, his assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Bryant? I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are some people here to see you. They say it's urgent. Who? They said they're from the flight. Passengers who were there when it happened. Marcus and David exchanged glances. Send them in. 5 people entered the office. The elderly black man who had spoken at the gate. Diana Foster, the young woman who had recorded the incident. A middle-aged white couple. And a Latino man in a business suit. Mr. Bryant, the elderly man said, extending his hand. My name is James Washington. We heard about the lawsuit and we want to help. Help how? Marcus asked, shaking his hand. Diana stepped forward. We want to testify. All of us. We were there. We saw everything. And we're not going to let Claire Peterson twist what happened. The white woman nodded vigorously. What she did was disgusting. My husband and I have a daughter Kayla's age. If someone treated her that way, her voice broke. We can't stay silent. I run a civil rights organization, the Latino man said. We've been following this case closely. Mr. Bryant, if this goes to trial, you won't be fighting alone. We have resources, expert witnesses, and a team of lawyers who specialize in discrimination cases. We want to stand with you. James Washington added quietly, I told you at the airport that I thought we were past this kind of hatred, but I was wrong. We're not past it. And the only way we get past it is by fighting every single time. No settlements. No quiet agreements. Justice. Real justice. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He wasn't alone in this fight. Kayla wasn't alone. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. All of you. Thank you. The courtroom was trial took place 4 months later. News cameras lined up outside. Protesters held signs, some supporting Kayla, others supporting Claire. Claire's lawyers argued exactly as David had predicted. They portrayed her as a hard-working employee who made a split-second decision based on years of training. They brought in experts who testified about the prevalence of ticket fraud. They showed statistics about security threats in airports. But they couldn't explain away the video. When the jury watched Claire's face as she looked at Kayla, the disgust, the contempt, the immediate assumption of guilt, the courtroom went silent. When they heard Claire say, "Does she look like someone who can afford a $1,000 ticket?" Several jurors visibly recoiled. Diana Foster testified, describing the incident in painful detail. It wasn't about the ticket, she said firmly. Ms. Peterson never even tried to verify it. She just saw a black child and decided she didn't belong. James Washington took the stand, his voice shaking but strong. I'm 73 years old. I've seen this pattern my whole life. People who look at black folks and see criminals, see problems, see people who don't belong. Ms. Peterson is part of that pattern. And if we don't break that pattern now, my great-grandchildren will still be dealing with it when they're my age. But the most powerful testimony came from Kayla herself. She sat in the witness stand, looking impossibly small. Claire's lawyer approached her with a practiced smile. Kayla, isn't it true that you were nervous that day? Maybe you look suspicious because you were scared. I wasn't scared until Miss Peterson looked at me like I was bad, Kayla replied quietly. But you admit you were just a child traveling alone. Perhaps Miss Peterson was concerned for your safety. She wasn't concerned, Kayla interrupted. her voice growing stronger. She was mean. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask if I needed help. She just decided I was lying and ripped up my ticket. The lawyer tried again. Ms. Peterson has apologized. Don't you think she deserves forgiveness? Kayla looked directly at Claire, who sat at the defense table, her eyes downcast. I already forgave her, Kayla said. I told her that at the airport. But forgiving someone doesn't mean what they did was okay. It doesn't mean there shouldn't be consequences. My dad taught me that actions have consequences. Good actions and bad actions. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood up. In the case of Peterson versus Bryant Airlines, we find in favor of the defendant. Furthermore, we find that Ms. Peterson's actions constitute clear discrimination based on race. Claire burst into tears. Marcus closed his eyes, relief flooding through him. But the forewoman wasn't finished. The jury would also like to make a statement. What happened to Kayla Bryant should never happen to any child. We hope this verdict sends a message that discrimination in any form will not be tolerated. The courtroom erupted in applause. 6 months later, Bryant Airlines launched a new initiative, the Kayla Bryant Scholarship Fund for young people of color pursuing careers in aviation. Every employee underwent extensive anti-bias training. Not the kind you click through online, but real, meaningful workshops that force people to confront their own prejudices. And Marcus created a new position, Director of Diversity and Inclusion, reporting directly to him. Beth, the flight attendant who had spoken up that day, was promoted to that role. As for Claire Peterson, she moved to another state and took a job outside the airline industry. The lawsuit had bankrupted her. Her reputation was destroyed. But more than that, she had lost something she could never get back, the ability to look at herself in the mirror and feel proud. One evening, Marcus and Kayla sat on their back porch, watching the sunset. Dad, Kayla said quietly, do you think Miss Peterson learned anything? Marcus considered the question. I don't know, baby girl. I hope so. I hope that someday she'll understand the pain she caused and become a better person because of it. Do you think things will really change? Will people really treat each other better? Marcus pulled his daughter close. Change is slow, Kayla. It's frustrating and exhausting, and sometimes it feels impossible. But every time someone speaks up, every time someone stands up for what's right, we move a little bit closer. Even when it's scary? Especially when it's scary, because that's when it matters most. Kayla leaned her head on her father's shoulder. I'm glad we didn't give up. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Above them, a plane soared across the darkening sky, its lights blinking like stars. And somewhere on that plane, a child was traveling safely, treated with dignity and respect. Because of Kayla. Because she had been brave enough to speak up. Because she had turned her pain into purpose. And that, Marcus thought, was the most powerful thing of all. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now. Show that you stand against discrimination and believe in justice for all people. Only haters and bigots won't subscribe. Prove you're better than that. Like, comment, and share this story with everyone who needs to hear Kayla's message. Let's make sure her bravery wasn't in vain. Subscribe now